The roadmap for the wildest ride in our lives is inside us thanks to our DNA. So would you be brave enough to discover where it leads? 12 New Zealanders have, and they're about to find out what really runs in their blood. Broadcaster Willie Jackson and actress Siobhan Ruakere both have colourful characters in their past, some they know and some that they're about to meet.
Yeah, well, it looks like we could be cousins, eh?
Oh, fantastic! No. We are related!
Now, the eyes may well be the window to the soul, but a teaspoon of saliva can unlock the gateway to our ancient past and connections that span the globe, all thanks to our own DNA. Actress Siobhan Ruakere has a large extended family, but the DNA detectives have some new people to add to her family tree. Let's see how that prospect sits with her, shall we?
That messes with my mind majorly. I can't understand it. The fact that I can take this test and trace back my roots and maybe meet some people that I would have never, ever in my life have met if it wasn't for this. Yeah, that blows my mind. My mum and my dad are so excited. That's one of the reasons I'm happiest about doing this, not just for myself, but for my mum and my dad. They are gonna love this. They're fully into the family history.
Ah, Siobhan.
Hello.
Welcome to the surgery.
Oh, thank you. I feel like I'm in trouble somehow.
Well, Siobhan, this is all a bit exciting, isn't it?
It's very exciting, Richard.
So, what's the current focus of your life?
My heart and soul lies in acting. Mm-hmm. Not the easiest path to choose in life, especially in this country, but I've had a couple of trips over to LA and I have representation over there now, so I'm hoping to go back at some point this year.
Well, rest assured you're going to travel. There's no doubt about that, because we're going to send you around the world. We have a world map here of your DNA markers. Let's take a look at that, shall we? OK, Siobhan, your mother's history is clear in the British, German and French results. And it's of little surprise to see the Oceania markers, but the 19.4% East Asian and Native American DNA is very interesting.
What? That's fascinating.
It is, actually.
Oh, my gosh.
Scientists have found that Native Americans and Asian peoples were close relatives about 15,000 years ago. Perhaps that might surprise you.
That kind of made my hair stand on end, hearing that.
Comparing your DNA with global results has found 918 matches. And you're going to get to meet a few of them quite soon. Now, you take that with you.
Thank you.
And we'll stay in touch.
All right. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for coming in.
I'm so excited.
Siobhan's DNA results seem to show that a love of the limelight may well be inherent. She has some very, very colourful relatives, one of whom was a pioneer of the screen slightly more blue than silver. Siobhan, Siobhan, you're about to board a flight to LA. You think that's good? It gets better. You're about to discover a startling connection to a showbiz family.
I've always been quite realistic about this, path I've chosen. You have to be fully committed because it's incredibly hard and there are just millions of people there. And plus, I've got to do the accent. I've got to try and do an American accent, which sometimes I find easy and other times I just balls it up, man. Hey, my name is Siobhan Ruakere. I'm 5'7.5" and I'm from New Zealand. Yeah.
Morning, Siobhan. No time to waste. You're off to meet a relative of a relative with quite a dramatic past. Follow this map to Riverside and prepare for the kind of tale that movie scripts are made of. Any clue who that might be?
So here's a story that gets bandied around the family a lot. It's about my great-great-great-grandmother on Mum's side, who was called Hannah O'Reilly. And Hannah O'Reilly was married to a fella called Barney. And Barney shot off to South Africa chasing, I think, the diamonds trade. And he'd gone for ages, And then he sends for them and sends for Hannah and their 9 or 10 kids to come and join him in South Africa. So she gets the whole family together and gets them on the boat, and they do the long trip over, long journey, only to find that once they get there, Barney has taken up with a red-headed floozy and doesn't want anything to do with Hannah or the kids, all 9 or 10 of them. So poor Hannah O'Reilly is left. How's she going to get everyone home? So she worked, slaved like a dog, I'm sure, to earn the passage for the whole family to get home. I think maybe some of the kids stayed in South Africa because they were old enough. But there's also a story of 2 of the boys who were teenagers. They stowed away on a boat and they got discovered and they were put off on an island. And if I could sound like my mother for a second here, we don't know what happened to those boys. If they were picked up by someone else, a passing boat, or if they're still on that island, we just don't know.
Well, you're warm, right side of the family, but wrong adventures. Just keep heading for Riverside. A tale bigger than Ben Hur awaits you there.
Well, my journey has brought me to a cemetery in Riverside, California. I have a clue in my hand, a name I'm going to be looking for. Nora Ryan. Mrs. Ryan, 75, died Tuesday in a Baldwin Park hospital, a native of Taranaki, New Zealand.
That's my grandmother.
This is your grandma.
These are my grandparents, yes. Their son is my father.
I'm Siobhan.
Hi, Siobhan. We're second cousins.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
You're Steve Ryan.
Steve Ryan. My father is Nora's son.
And so Nora is
My grandmother.
your grandmother?
Yeah. You have the same accent she had.
Yeah, because we grew up in the same place.
Yeah.
Siobhan's great-grandaunt, Nora, is Steve's grandmother. Nora Hurley, he grew up in New Zealand, but boarded a boat bound for Hollywood in the 20s with her husband and children in tow.
I know a little bit about her that my mum's told me, and I heard she was an actress.
Yes, she was in the silent film.
What do you remember?
The only film I know she was in was Ben Hur.
Really?
In the first show of Ben Hur,
Yeah,
the silent film version.
The silent film version, right.
In England.
How on earth did she end up in Hollywood?
She found her way into the films from talent scouts that showed up in Inglewood, New Zealand.
Inglewood and Taranaki.
That's correct.
Oh my gosh, that's a little
That's
tiny
where my
wee town.
father was born, in Taranaki. Somewhere in that area, they had a farm, and the talent scouts showed up, and she loved the theater, so she played piano, she sang opera.
Wow.
She liked the idea of coming to Hollywood when
What
she got here.
an incredible journey.
She was quite a character. She did not care what people thought of her. She wore the same clothes over and over, never wore shoes.
That's funny because
Yeah.
I've got no
Yeah.
shoes on right now.
Normally, I don't have shoes either. My feet are quite callous. So.
Fantastic.
No.
We are related.
No. She was one of my best friends. She told
Really?
me to.
That's such a lovely thing to say. Oh, she sounds awesome.
Oh, she was awesome. Everybody knew she was awesome.
I want to follow in your grandmother's footsteps. I really want to
Cool.
move to LA and...
Yeah, pick up where she left off.
That was so great to meet Steve today, my cousin bro, and to get more information from him about my great-grand aunt, Nora Ryan. I didn't know I had this relative who came to Hollywood and became a silent movie star. That's amazing. It's what I want to do with my life, and she did it. Like me, she came from small town, Taranaki. It's kind of like this full circle thing happening. I kind of think I owe it to Nora now, right? Keep the dream alive.
Coming up, Siobhan discovers some sordid Hollywood history in her family tree, while Willie discovers the mysterious secret bringing him to Germany.
I'm just hoping I'm not going to be related to you-know-who.
You know, choosing to discover the secrets hidden in your DNA can easily lead you on a merry global dance. An outspoken radio host, Willie Jackson, is about to put on his dancing shoes. But first, let's see what Willie hopes that he might find on his journey, shall we?
The The whakapapa thing is everything, you see. The whakapapa thing for us is everything. I don't think some of my Pākehā mates can get over how many cousins I've got. We sometimes have 50, 100, 200, 300 cousins. That's unheard of, I think, in the Pākehā world, but not uncommon in our world.
Well, people know me, I suppose, from broadcasting and, politics. But this is the work, this is the real work, this is the work that I love, working with our community. And we want to instill good principles, good values into them early so that they can be strong later in life.
I'm not into inherited leadership. I'm into people who prove themselves, and I won't be jumping around out of my seat. So if all of a sudden I find out I'm related to Henry VIII or something. But you can't choose who your ancestors were, right?
Willie, welcome to Mission Control. Pleasure.
Good to meet you, Richard.
Sit yourself down. Willie, you're not exactly backward in coming forward on your radio program. How do you suppose your listeners are going to react to this?
There's a lot of interest at the moment from both audiences. Māori audience are fascinated because sometimes they want to talk about how Māori you are, and then in mainstream they want to know if you've got all this these other groupings involved with you, and they want to sort of say, see you weren't that Māori anyway. So it's going to be interesting.
And your family, they're quite outspoken. What are they going to say?
Most of them are fine. One or two are a little bit worried.
Oh, about what? About what?
I think people take this, they take this sort of stuff to heart, and it is really important. And that goes in line with a lot of thinking in terms of Māoridom. We're fascinated by, interested in whakapapa, ancestry.
That's interesting, because so far it's all been anecdotal, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And this is a different trail completely, isn't it?
Well, a lot of it is anecdotal. See, sometimes you don't know what's true and what's not.
We can prove some truth with this.
One would hope so.
Yes, I have
One would hope so.
Well, we've got a world map showing your DNA markers and where they come from. Are you ready to see them?
I'm ready.
Okie dokie. There we go. Your DNA covers the globe, Willie. Your European markers reflect your father's side. The East Asian and Oceania ones represent your Maori ancestry. And there's a small trace of African DNA. Goodness gracious me. There's also some interesting traces from Spain, Portugal, and more. Can't go into that yet, though. More of that once you're on the road. Comparing your test with global results has given us 915 genetic matches for you. A couple of those are waiting to meet you.
Yeah, can't wait.
Well, that's it for now. I want you to keep that with you and wait instructions for your global adventure, which will come through soon. Thank you so much, Willie, for coming in.
Thank you, Richard. Thanks
Pleasure.
very much.
Excellent. It's not Willie's second cousins that are going to have everyone talking. Stay tuned.
I think we're going to the States. That's my guess at the moment. Well, I'm hoping to be related to Jesse, Jesse. Michael, I'll take Michael Jackson, but probably way off the mark. Berlin. Oh, my goodness. All the way to Germany, eh? God, how many hours is that? 100? Oh, goodness. Oh, well, should be exciting. I'm just hoping I'm not going to be related to you-know-who. I am excited. I've always had an interest in my whakapapa, ancestry. I think it's exciting. I'm a little bit nervous. You never know what you're going to end up with, do you? So much history here, so much history. I'm walking along the wall in Berlin on the East Germany side. When I think about Germany, I think about our tipuna, I think about the Māori battalion. It's funny that. I don't think they came into the main street of Berlin, but I always think about what Rommel said, give me the battalion and I'll conquer the world. So I always think about our tipuna, my grandfather and all that lot, Ngāti Pro Sea Company. Kia ora.
Willie, great news. Your DNA has revealed that you are linked to a small and distinct population. The Ashkenazi Jews. And it's a significant percentage.
Wow. I'm a bit sort of stunned, looking and thinking about Jewish history, but I've never heard of any stories down that track.
Now, Willie's test has revealed some rather amazing clues about his past. The 25% Ashkenazi markers tell us that a very close relative had ties to the Jewish community. How do we know this? Well, you see, we inherit 50% of our DNA from our mother and father, and they each get half of their DNA from their mother and father. And that means that 25% of our DNA is from our grandparents. So with 25% of Willie's DNA coming from a very small, distinct group like the Ashkenazi Jews, it's highly likely that a grandparent or great-grandparent came from that culture.
The Jewish background is really surprising. It's fascinating, really, because, you know, I'm quite a supporter of the Palestinians.
To help Willie come to terms with his Jewish roots, we've arranged a meeting with a local guide, Yoav.
Hello,
Yes.
you must be Willie.
Good to meet you. Oh, you're very, very sharp looking there, brother.
Thank you very much, you too.
Yeah, you look like the bros back in New Zealand.
The Ashkenazi population descends from such a small group of people that everyone is related in some way or other. Yoav and Willie, therefore, are distant cousins.
So for many of us, you know, on Talkback Radio, we've had this debate about whether Judaism is a religion or whether it is an ethnicity.
You are born Jewish, right? And it doesn't really matter if you believe or if you don't believe. You can be actually an atheist, right? And you'd still be Jewish.
Now, because Jews are so genetically distinct, we know that Willie will have people in his lineage that were also affected by the Holocaust.
So what we see here are called the stumbling stones. We're supposed to stumble upon them, but metaphorically, not physically, not with our feet, with our hearts and minds as Germans. They commemorate victims of Nazi Germany. Since most of them were murdered in the camps, their bodies were burned, they don't have graves, they don't have headstones.
Yeah.
The idea behind the project is to give them surrogate headstones at their former addresses where they used to live.
You know your history so well. The Germans, are they interested in this Jewish history or no?
Typically they aren't.
This is important history for this country.
You know, importance is something very subjective.
Yeah.
It's a matter of perspective. Sometimes they would ignore precisely what's important. We're approaching a very special monument, I'd like to show you. Unlike most other monuments, it's not about what we see. And it's not about the table, nor about the chairs. It's about what's missing. It's about the void. Jewish families used to live in many of these apartments until somebody knocked on their door, kidnapping them brutally, forcefully to an unknown place, typically Auschwitz and places like that. And ever since they're gone. We have to live with the past, the blood-soaked past of this neighborhood, the way it is forever, which is why this chair, of course, cannot be picked up. You cannot change, you cannot correct it, just as you cannot change the past.
Some people would find it very tough, wouldn't they? Being reminded of the sins of their fathers.
I would think so, yeah.
Incredible. You must have been directly affected with your own family?
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. I would hate them forever.
Yeah, hate.
Yeah.
Let's keep it in that
Yeah,
state.
yeah. Oh, you would. You could not
Yeah.
help them. It is only human. Seeing that monument was pretty emotional and just an example of what Jewish people put up with. A lot of Germans are ashamed of what happened, and you can see why when you go to that memorial.
Coming up, Willie learns more about his Jewish roots and a mysterious rugby connection, while Siobhan learns about her link to exploitation films.
Your relative broke a lot of ground.
Willie Jackson's in Berlin because his tests showed that he has 25% Ashkenazi markers in his DNA. He's trying to get a handle on the basics of Jewish culture with the help of guide and distant cousin, Yoav.
Having found out about your Jewish ancestry, what does that actually mean to you?
You know, I'm still absorbing that. You know? You don't know how influential it is in terms of your life, do you? I mean, you can't choose your history. You can't choose your relations, can you? I don't think just because I have a certain amount of Jewish ancestry that should affect me in any way whatsoever. In fact, when I think about it, I think I'm quite proud of that ancestry. I think it complements me as a human being, but I was never brought up in the Jewish way. And like you, we go back generations,
Okay.
thousands of years. We love tracing back our roots.
Okay.
It's very similar to the Jewish. And history means everything for us. I was in two minds when I first found out about this, because I've really been on the Palestinian crusade through the years, and so to be told I've got Jewish background in history was a surprise and shock. There must be an influence from tipono, from ancestors on both sides. Half the world chess champions are Ashkenazi Jews. I thought that was amazing, really, to see. Chess has played quite a part of my family. My dad was a champion chess player, and my son's a champion chess player. We all played chess. I think there's something that you inherit from your ancestors. I really do.
Willie, we've theorised that your great-grandfather, Fred Jackson, may well be the source of these Ashkenazi markers. As you know, his identity has been questioned before. Author Tom Mather is going to give us more on that. Tom?
Hi, Richard. Hi, Willie. I first became interested in Fred when I'd written a book about the very first rugby league tour down to Australia and New Zealand. All that we knew that he was going by the name of Frederick Stanley Jackson, and clubs came forward and admitted that they'd played against Frederick Stanley Jackson, knowing that he was Ivor Gabe. So then I'd got the aliases, basically, none of which existed. Because when we looked at the census records, no Frederick Stanley Jackson, no Ivor Gabe, and all of that changed when I got an email from, would you believe, Fred's nephew, Glenn Gabe. He informed me that the family had changed its name from Gabe to Gabe. And when we looked at the census records for 1881, there he was, Ivor Thomas Gabe, born 24th of August, 1877. Ivor Thomas Gabe, alias Frederick Stanley Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Tom. Willie, it's very clear that Fred Stanley Jackson was an international man of mystery, and there's more than a sneaking chance that those Ashkenazi markers came from him. The DNA detectives have found descendants of Ivor Thomas Gape, one of his potential identities, and we're sending you to meet one or two of them. And we're going to gather DNA samples so that we can compare your results. So your first stop, mate, is London. Meanwhile, in LA, Siobhan's learned that she's not actually the first in her family to seek out the silver screen.
Learning about my great-grand aunt Nora, she took such a big gamble and it seemed to have paid off. So if she can do it, I can do it, eh? LA's probably a pretty scary place. Pretty soul-destroying for a lot of people. But I have had this dream for a long time now, and it's about bloody time I made it happen, right? Roll the dice, that's what I decided with this. Roll the dice, Siobhan.
Hi, Siobhan. You seem to be very much at home in LA. There's no surprises, really, because you have another relative who made waves in Hollywood. Head downtown tomorrow. Brace yourself for some steamy and seamy stories about Dan.
Okay, so I'm heading that way.
Great-grand-auntie Nora's daughter Margaret married Dan Sonny. Now, his films were a little racier than Auntie Nora's.
Hello, Bill.
Hello.
I'm
Yeah.
Siobhan. Nice to meet you.
How you doing, kid?
How are you?
Bill Margold is an adult entertainment industry legend, but without the work of Dan Sonny and his business partner, David Friedman, that particular arm of the industry might never have come into being.
I only met your relative once at a screening of a movie called Mau Mau Sex Sex. It was about the history of exploitation movies. And exploitation movies were movies that sort of gave you a lot of tease but didn't deliver the goods. Your relative broke a lot of ground with the help of Friedman, they were both like P.T. Barnums, they were both con men, Each time they pushed the envelope a little bit further.
Yeah. So when they tapped into the idea of show a little bit of booby,
Yes.
they started making it rain.
He left, I think, before the hardcore business really took
Yeah,
off.
he was when it just began, right?
Yeah.
When it was
He
just
never
being
did anything
birthed.
even remotely associated to hardcore.
Yeah, thank goodness for my mother.
Now, Bill wants Siobhan to get a sense of what her great-grand cousin Dan did. So a show reel of his finest sizzle, without the sausage, awaits her.
Oh! Oh, hello. My goodness. It's really interesting to me because I have never even heard of this relative until I started working on the show. So it makes me think that back home in little old New Zealand, maybe my relatives who do know about him kept him quiet. Yeah, don't worry, Mum. I'm not going to go into that part of the industry. Yet.
Coming up, Siobhan is about to meet a Polynesian connection while Willie Jackson learns that great-granddad Fred had another identity.
He was very good at avoiding being photographed.
In London, Willie's on the hunt to learn if his great-grandfather, the mysterious rugby player Fred Jackson, was actually Welshman Ivor Gabe. Mark's great-great-great-grandfather, Rhys Gabe, was Ivor's uncle. And Mark's going to donate some of his DNA to help resolve this conundrum.
Yeah, well, it looks like we could be cousins, eh?
Possibly, yeah.
Will
So,
that help me in terms of a place to stay here in London?
well, we'll see if you're related first, shall we? How's that?
Check the DNA
Check the
evidence
DNA,
before I
order
can
the
come
DNA.
knocking on your door.
But you never heard any stories
No,
of
not
his
really.
life before he moved to New Zealand?
Fred Jackson, not really. Just, you know, he was this great sportsman who set
Yeah.
up and went off with our great-grandmother.
Uh-huh.
I've seen his grave. Yeah.
Right. But he wasn't shy about building a new life and becoming well known and putting himself out there.
Yeah, well, he was a different name, wasn't he?
Yeah. But my grandfather played rugby for Cardiff.
Oh, really?
He was a Gabe. Well, Gabe Jones was his surname.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So if we are related, he'd have been a second cousin.
Yes,
But we had another cousin, R.T. Gabe.
yes.
He would have been a cousin of
Fred,
Ivor,
Ivor. Yeah.
or Fred,
Yeah.
Ivor. And he played for Wales in 1905. I don't know if you know what happened in 1905.
Yes. Oh, yes, you guys,
They beat
you got a very lucky victory. That the ref,
our relative got a very good victory.
While the lab works on comparing Mark and Willie's DNA to establish once and for all whether Fred Jackson was Ivor Gabe, we've traced his early history, which leads us to Swinton. The White Lion pub was once the changing rooms for the Swinton Lions Rugby League team. Now, Fred may have donned his strip here, that's if Tom's theory's correct, and it also seems Swinton rugby historian Steve has found yet another twist in this tale.
yeah, so we're in sort of pursuit of our mystery man who happens to be my great-grandfather, Fred Jackson, come over to New Zealand with the 1908 Anglo-Welsh rugby team. But I think he just switched between the codes all the time, rugby and rugby league. So
We knew him as Jack Jones. He played for Swinton as John Jones. He played for us in 1901-1902 season. We were one of the biggest clubs in the early days of the Northern Union. The guy came to us, said he was John Jones, played for us on and off, and then disappeared as mysteriously as he turned up. And in fact, he was known locally as the Mysterious Jones. Another interesting thing, I've come across a photograph. This is the 1901-02 Swinton lineup.
right.
And Jones or Jackson or whoever is not on the lineup, which is strange. He was very good at avoiding being photographed. When a photograph finally did emerge in Cornwall, he sent a sworn affidavit to say that Jones and Jackson were one and the same person. That set a train of events in motion that subsequently got him banned from that Anglo-Welsh tour in 1908. And of course, I think he was ordered to return home and face the music, but he never did.
No, jumped
That's
ship.
more your-
Ran
that's
off
more
with
your
one of
story.
our grandmothers.
There you go. Yeah. so apparently,
He had the sling for Māori woman, I think.
but he certainly never returned to England and faced the music.
He was a great sportsman, though, obviously, because when he was in New Zealand, he ended up playing for the Kiwis.
That's right.
Rugby league.
Yeah.
Yeah. 3 sons played for the New Zealand Māori All Blacks, and one of the sons, my grandfather, became an All Black. So you can see how strong he was in the game, and the blood sort of continued.
Oh, right.
It just went a bit wrong when it got to my generation.
Willie, the plot thickens. Fred had 2 alter egos, but the DNA detectives have a plan, so take the next train to Wales, where you're going to meet Jill. Her father was Ivor Gabe, and her uncle was John Jack Jones, both names Fred Jackson used. She's waiting in Swansea to do a DNA test to help you solve this mystery. Actress Siobhan Ruakari has discovered that she's got silver screen connections in Hollywood, but if she follows the directions that I've sent through, she's going to meet a Polynesian relative who's mapped family connections back tens of thousands of years.
I'm hoping it's The Rock. You're not The Rock. Hello.
Hi.
Nice to meet
Kalani.
you. Kalani?
Kalani.
Kalani, I'm Siobhan.
Well, nice to meet you.
Kalani, you live here?
I live here, but originally from Hawaii.
Kalani moved to LA many years ago, but he grew up in Hawaii, and his mum still lives there.
Kalani, one of the coolest things I found out when I got my results was that I have a splash of Native American, which made me want to jump up and down, especially because my mum who is, we say Pākehā, she's white, she's always had this crazy affinity with the American Indian people. She loves reading about them. She kind of thinks she was one in a former life. So when I got that in my results, I was like, yes. You know, the first thing I wanted to do was tell Mum.
And guess what? She's not the only one. There's a lot of us Polynesian people are getting these small bits of Native American.
Yeah.
We're also finding that Native American people might come up with Oceanian as well. And it's because we have the same common ancestor going back thousands of years ago, like 10,000 years ago.
So am I Pocahontas or not?
Probably not.
Right.
But we do come from the same group of people that went to these 2 different areas.
Yeah.
I got a different type of test where it tests my mother's mother's side. It's a direct maternal lineage, which is haplogroup B, and that's where Polynesian people come from.
What was it called?
Haplogroups.
Haplogroups.
It's like a tribe,
Yeah.
but going back to just one woman. And that can go back thousands and thousands of years. Migration started from Southeast Asia. Her descendants ended up migrating further south to, this is Papua New Guinea. And then they settled here, Samoa and Tonga, and then eventually on to New Zealand, Hawaii, and Easter Island.
All started with one lady.
Yes, but the haplogroup B, even though Polynesian people come from B, a lot of Southeast Asian come from B, and also her ancestors went all the way to the Americas. Native American people also have haplogroup B.
Right.
So Siobhan's haplogroup B ancestors were the branch of the family who took a shine to the warmer climes of the South Pacific. And now we found some more recent relatives who feel very much the same. Hello, Siobhan. Are you ready for the next leg of your adventure? There are tickets at the airport for Hawaii with your name on them.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to Honolulu. It's got to be Dad's side of the family. It's the Māori side. I'm going back to like the ancient lands, Hawaii Nui. I've always wanted to go there. Oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Coming up, Siobhan gets a warm island welcome while Willie walks on the hallowed ground where his famous great-grandfather may have played.
We're in the midst of history. Fantastic.
Hello, Siobhan. It's very likely that you feel very, very much at home in Hawaii, as there's quite a few relatives of yours in that part of the world. You're about to meet 2 of your DNA relatives, Charles and Chris Arno. Now, you share 7 DNA segments, so it's very likely you share several ancestors as well.
It's my first ever time in Hawaii, and I'm about to rock up to a complete stranger's house. The only information I have is that I'm meeting a Charles and a Chris. And I really need to pee, so the first impression of me is probably going to be some random chick rocking up and asking to use their bathroom. Aloha!
Aloha.
Oh, wow! Oh, thank you. Hello.
Hello.
Aloha.
I'm Chris, I'm his father.
Oh, hello, Chris. Chris and Charles.
Charles. Yes.
Lovely to meet you. Lovely to meet
yeah.
you. Can I use your bathroom?
Yeah. Come on. This is my grandfather, Paul Mahulu, and this is me.
Look at you, handsome thing.
There's a connection.
Yeah.
You know.
I saw your sign up there before, e komo mai.
Yeah, welcome.
And we say haere mai in Māori, you know, welcome, haere mai. Do many people speak Hawaiian here in Honolulu?
Well, there's a revival in the language right now. Like my time, like my grandparents' time, it was sort of against the law. You couldn't speak Hawaiian. You couldn't speak it.
Yeah, when my dad was a kid in school, they'd get the strap or they'd get, you know, they'd get into trouble.
Yeah, it's sad because we lost part of the culture, I guess, you know, a little bit of it, but they're trying to revive it now.
It's really similar to what is happening back home in New Zealand, you know. And my dad is 76 now and he's taking classes every week.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
I guess if he can go, I can go.
Yeah. Get along.
So Siobhan's family keeps growing. Chris's other son, Josh, and his 2 daughters have arrived to meet their long-lost Kiwi cousin.
So we've got something in common because we're both the babies in our family.
Yeah.
You don't look like much of a baby.
It seems there's already a Maori connection in the Arno family.
So I love that you have this.
Yes.
What can you tell me about it?
I got this in Wellington. This is like the family line, and it's shaped like a heart, and each one of these lines is my kids. And down here, shaped like a hammerhead shark, because he asked me about mountains and, you know, my sacred animal, whatever, and, you know, where my family was from.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know too much about it. And I feel kind of ashamed that I didn't really, you know, get my culture down. And
I feel the same way about being Māori, that I don't know much about it. But the older I'm getting, the more interested I'm becoming in it,
yes.
you know?
Yes.
I think that's really cool. That's
I
so
like,
cool to see that.
13 years, something like that. Yeah.
Nice.
To me, it's very, you know, it's very personal. And, you know, it represents my family.
Yeah.
And who I am.
I'm really glad you had that experience. Like,
Yes.
I'm happy, proud that, you know, you came to my country and, you know.
I am too. And,
Yeah.
you know, just to think 20-something years later, here I am talking with you.
I know, it's crazy, right? Yeah.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
That is awesome. You know, who would ever known?
Oh, because of DNA.
DNA. Yes, this is good.
This is the life, actually. Do you think you've got a pretty sweet life?
Yeah.
It was a wonderful experience for me to hang out with them. They were really lovely. They had that, what I imagine Hawaiian people to be like. They just seemed very gentle and warm and welcoming. You look like my brother, Matthew. There's a definite similarity, especially on top.
He must be really good looking.
Oh, he's just like, he's a supermodel in New Zealand.
Yes, I knew it, see?
Do you think I look at all Hawaiian? Could I pass for a Hawaiian or not?
Oh, yeah. The first time I saw your picture, I thought you looked like one of my nieces.
Really?
And I was like, wow. So much so, yes. It's got to be a relative.
So I've got a Hawaiian doppelganger somewhere. Meeting Charles and Chris and Joshua, it's something I never would have ever imagined would happen, and it's so weird, and it's still blowing my mind that there's these 23 chromosomes that have somehow linked me to them. They did feel like family. Somewhere way back when, one of their rallies got it on with one of my rallies, and some mass migration probably. But how cool that, you know, I could meet them, and it's a really lovely place to feel connected to. I mean, it's stunning. It's breathtaking. And now I feel like, yeah, there's a little piece of me here.
Now, Willie's in Swansea to gather a DNA sample. The DNA detectives have found Jill Morgan, who had relatives with the name that Fred Jackson used as a rugby player. And as keen footy fans, Jill and her husband Denzel are keen to help resolve this mystery.
So there was this thought that my grandfather changed his name from Ivor Gabe to Fred Jackson.
Yes, the name makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know, because there's not a lot of Gabes around this area now. Do you think that your grandfather or your great-grand changed his name for some reason?
It's certainly looking that way.
Yeah.
It's certainly looking that way. We'll find out, but when we get some tests back from you in terms of your of the connection, but wouldn't it be funny if there was a connection?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it'd be nice.
If you were coming over home, come to my house for a holiday, because life is sometimes full of those sort of surprises.
Yeah.
Yes.
I got quite a surprise to find out I had some Jewish ancestry. No Jewish connections or anything? No. That sort of came up in our
Not
DNA.
that we know of.
Yeah, well, same with us.
Yes.
Yeah. Have you thought about having some Māori relations? Have you thought about that?
Just be nice to know if we are, yes or no,
Well, I
isn't
tell
it?
you what,
And
there'd be a lot of the neighbours jealous. connected to the rugby team.
yes.
Be lovely to be related. They got a lovely Manaki side. You could feel the warmth from that whānau. We're in the midst of history. Fantastic. I wonder if the old grandfather played here. You know, if the DNA doesn't match up, then we're back to square one, aren't we?
And now that he's got the DNA samples from Mark and Jill, the lab can look at what DNA, if any, they share. Willie and Siobhan have certainly enjoyed discovering relatives long lost to them. And a further bombshell, thanks to our testing, is that Willie and Siobhan share 10 segments of DNA, which puts them at second or third cousins, which, unless they've been holding out on us, is going to be news to them as well.
Willie Jackson! That's where the argumentative streak comes from.
I don't even know if I've met Siobhan, to tell you the truth. She is from Taranaki, eh? Same sort of whakapapa, eh?
And speaking of whakapapa, the DNA results, which will prove whether Willie's great-grandfather was a Welshman or not, are now in. Willie? Yes, thank you. Your DNA results have had us on our toes in the lab. We've done further testing, and we know now for sure that your Ashkenazi Jewish markers are on your father's line. We also have in the DNA results from Mark and Jill, the descendants of the Gape family. Bit of a shock there, because while their results show that they're related to each other, neither of them actually shares any DNA with you. So who your great-grandfather was still remains something of a mystery.
The mystery continues. Well, I suppose I'm not that surprised, because it seems to be a theme of the Jacksons. You know, I don't get too worked up about, you know, the percentages of what you are. The reality is you are a product of your upbringing. And I'm a product of my upbringing, which has been, you know, 99.9% Māori. So I'm a product of that, you know, whatever the DNA results said.
DNA contains the roadmap of where our ancestors came from, but studying it can raise new questions even as we attempt to answer the old ones. We all have links in our blood to places and people that we could never have imagined. So who's going to be curious enough to take the test next week? Why don't you join us and find out?